My name is Grace Hollander. I'm 68 years old, and until this morning, I thought I still had control over my own house. When I came home from tutoring, the first thing I saw wasn't my cat or the sunlight through the kitchen window. It was a silver padlock, brand new, hanging right there on the pantry door I built with my husband Harold 40 years ago. For a moment, I just stood there, my grocery bag sliding off my arm. The sound of it hitting the tile felt louder than it should have. I stared at that lock, shiny and confident, as if it had every right to be there. Then Megan walked in, my daughter-in-law. She was wiping her hands on one of my towels, her nails perfect, her perfume too sweet for this kitchen. "Oh, Grace," she said, almost singing it. "We bought some special things, organic oils, imported coffee. Just wanted to keep them separate. You understand?" I didn't understand. "Not at all. That's my pantry," I said quietly. She looked up then, those brown eyes colder than I remembered. "Let's not make this a big deal. We all need our own space. Our own space. In my house. The same house where Harold's laugh once filled every corner, where my children grew up, where every crack in the floor tells a story." I felt something inside me tighten, like an old door swelling in the summer heat. I didn't argue. I just nodded, slowly, and walked out to the porch. My hands were shaking. The sun was too bright, the air too still. That lock gleamed through the window like a warning sign, and that was the moment I knew. Something had changed. I just didn't realize how much yet. 3 years earlier, when Harold died, the house turned into an echo. His voice was still on the answering machine for months because I couldn't bring myself to erase it. The nights were the worst. Too long. Too quiet. When my youngest son, Luke, offered to move in with his wife. For a little while, I said yes before even thinking. I told myself it would be nice to have company. Someone else's footsteps in the hallway again. At first, it was... They arrived with laughter and boxes full of promises. Megan brought new curtains. To brighten the place up, Luke fixed the porch steps and mowed the lawn. We had dinners together. She cooked quinoa salads I pretended to like, and he teased me for still keeping the landline. It almost felt like healing. But kindness can be a slow kind of erosion. It starts small, one picture moved, one shelf rearranged, and before you notice, the shape of your life isn't yours anymore. The first thing she changed was the living room. Harold's brown leather chair, the one where he read the paper every Sunday, was too old-fashioned. It disappeared one weekend while I was at my friend Lydia's house. "We donated it," she said, smiling, as if she'd done me a favor. In its place sat a sleek gray sofa that looked like it belonged in a hotel lobby. Then came the kitchen. My cast-iron pans went to the basement because non-stick is healthier. My Blue Ridge china was boxed away, too fragile for everyday use. She hung bright prints on the walls, abstract colors that had nothing to do with the quiet warmth I loved. And every time I tried to object, Luke would squeeze my hand and whisper, "It's just temporary. Mom, she's trying to help." Temporary stretched into forever. My sewing room became Megan's wellness space. The dining room, once full of birthday candles and Sunday roasts, turned into their home office. They started hosting her friends, people I barely knew, who called me Grace like a stranger and brought wine I never tasted. The first time I felt truly invisible was when my daughter Nora came by for a surprise visit. She walked into a kitchen that no longer smelled like me. Megan greeted her with that brittle smile. "Oh, Nora, we didn't know you were coming. We were just heading out." Nora looked at me, confused, holding the cake she'd baked. "I thought we still did family dinners. she said quietly. "We just need to coordinate better." Megan replied, "Coordinate," as if my own daughter needed an appointment to see me. Nora left without touching the cake, and for 2 months, she didn't come back. After that, the silence grew heavier. My friends stopped visiting too. Lydia once came over on a Thursday, like she always had, and found the living room filled with yoga mats and music thumping. "Oh, sorry," Megan said, barely glancing up. "This is my workout time." Lydia sat awkwardly at the edge of the sofa, drank her coffee fast, and left. That evening, Megan told me, still scrolling her phone, "Maybe you can let me know when you invite people, so I don't have to change my schedule." Her schedule, in my house. Little by little, I disappeared from my own life. My name on the mailbox was the only proof I still lived there. The worst part wasn't the things she took. It was how she changed Luke, my sweet boy. The one who used to call me every other day, now barely spoke to me across the dinner table. "You okay, honey?" I asked one night as he stared at his plate. "Fine," he said. "Just tired." But his voice had a distance I couldn't reach across. A few nights later, I heard them arguing behind their closed door. The walls in old houses don't keep secrets. "She's getting forgetful," Megan said. "She's fine," Luke muttered. "Fine? She left the oven on last week." "I turned it off," he said. "She needs supervision." "Luke, maybe it's time we look into a facility. It's better for everyone." The silence that followed was worse than shouting, because I could hear him thinking, considering. My heart pounded so loud I was sure they could hear it through the wall. The next morning, I looked at him across the kitchen table. He smiled faintly, the same way he did when he was 6 and tried to hide a broken vase. But now, he was hiding me. From his conscience. From that day, something hardened inside me. The grief that had made me weak started to crystallize into anger, not the kind that explodes, but the kind that sharpens. I stopped trying to please them. When Megan mentioned rearranging the bedroom for better energy, I just said, "Do what you want." She smiled, thinking she'd won, not realizing I was just taking notes. I began to see the pattern. Every kindness she offered was a transaction, every apology a rehearsal. The house had become a stage where I played the old lady who smiled too much and spoke too little. One evening, I sat on the bed Harold and I shared for nearly 4 decades. His photograph on the nightstand caught the lamplight, and his eyes seemed to watch me. "You'd hate this, wouldn't you?" I whispered. Outside, laughter echoed from their room. My throat tightened. "I've been patient," I said to the empty air. "I thought love was enough." That night, I didn't cry. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of the roof above me, the same roof they now treated as theirs. It hit me then that grief wasn't what was keeping me quiet anymore. It was habit. I'd been mistaking endurance for kindness and silence for peace. When the first light touched the window, I made myself a promise. I wouldn't let them erase me completely. Not in this house. Not yet. It started on a quiet Sunday morning, the kind of morning Harold used to love, coffee brewing, sunlight spilling through the blinds. I sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the floor for a long time, then reached under it for the blue tin box. It was dented on one corner. The paint faded, but inside lay everything that still belonged to me without question. When I opened the lid, the smell of old paper filled the air. There were deeds, tax receipts, the will Harold and I wrote 15 years ago. My name was on every line that mattered. The house, the land, even the savings account, mine alone. I ran my fingers across the embossed letters of my own name, tracing it like a lifeline. For months I had felt powerless, but at that moment I realized I wasn't as cornered as they thought. I remembered what my mother used to tell me. Kindness is not weakness. Grace. But never forget, weakness often hides behind kindness. So, I began to prepare. I bought a small green notebook and titled it Household Ledger. April 2025. I wrote down every dollar that left my account. Utilities, property tax, groceries, gas. Underneath, I added a separate column, Luke and Megan's contribution, $200. The math spoke louder than any argument. I also started recording, not out of malice, but out of fear. Every phone call, every whispered conversation they thought I didn't hear. One afternoon I came home early and caught Megan on the patio, pacing with her phone. "No, Mom, I'm not exaggerating," she said. "She's impossible to live with. We've been taking care of her for years. Luke thinks we should just get the paperwork done before she forgets completely." I didn't make a sound. I just stepped back into the hallway and pressed stop on my recorder. Later that night, I labeled the file May Conversation 1 and uploaded it to 3 different cloud accounts. I didn't even know I still had that kind of precision in me, but evidence alone wasn't enough. I needed protection. Someone who understood the law better than they did. I found his name at the bottom of the deed, Patrick Ellis, attorney at law. Patrick had been one of my 3rd grade students 35 years ago, a quiet, serious boy who read legal thrillers instead of playing outside. At Harold's funeral, he'd hugged me and said, "Anything you ever need, call me." I called. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Mrs. Hollander," he said, his voice warm but steady. "What's going on?" "Patrick," I said softly, "I think I might be living with strangers who plan to take my house." He didn't laugh. "Then we'll make sure they can't." We met at his office downtown 2 days later. He went through the documents, line by line, tapping each page. "This property is yours entirely," he said. "If anyone tries to declare you mentally unfit or coerce you into signing over ownership, they'll need more than signatures. They'll need proof. You already have it." He looked up, smiling just a little. "You were always my sharpest teacher." I left the office lighter than I'd felt in months, but I also knew Megan wouldn't give up easily. That night, I began acting. I'd pretend to forget where I put my glasses, ask what day it was, leave the same cup in the sink twice. Luke looked worried. Megan looked satisfied. "See?" she said one evening. "It's getting worse." I caught the flicker of guilt in his eyes. It hurt, but it also told me I was right on track. They thought they were winning. I was simply gathering more. A week later, I forgot my wallet in the living room and doubled back quietly. Megan was whispering again, this time to Luke. "Once we get her to sign power of attorney, we can refinance the place. Pay off the car. It's all for her own good." For her own good. The phrase echoed in my head all night. I didn't sleep. I just watched the moonlight crawl across the ceiling and decided that tomorrow I'd stop playing the helpless widow. The next morning, I met Lydia for coffee. I handed her a yellow folder filled with USB drives, bank statements, and handwritten notes. "If anything happens to me," I said, "you take this to Patrick Ellis. Promise me." She frowned. "Grace, you're scaring me." "I hope I'm just being careful," I said. "But careful women live longer than careless ones." When I got home, Megan greeted me with her new smile, the sugary one she used when she wanted something. "Hey, I was thinking we should update some of your paperwork," she said casually. "You know, just in case anything happens." My lips almost twitched. "That's thoughtful of you, dear. Let's talk about it after dinner." I made her favorite casserole that night, humming softly as I cooked. She didn't know I'd hidden my recorder under the napkin holder. Every word she said went straight into evidence. By the end of the week, I had everything I needed. Proof of the $85,000 loan Luke never repaid. Recordings of their conversations about a care facility. Copies of every utility bill I'd paid alone. Now came the hard part, choosing when to strike. I decided on a Saturday, the one day when everyone would be home. I spent that evening preparing. I printed every file, sealed the copies in a folder, and wrote the first draft of the letter that would soon change everything. It wasn't angry. It was calm, factual, and impossible to ignore. Before bed, I stood by Harold's photograph again. "Tomorrow," I whispered. I stopped being kind. Then I slept soundly for the first time in years. When dawn came, I dressed carefully in my blue blouse with white flowers, the one Harold gave me for our last anniversary. I looked at my reflection and saw the woman I used to be, steady, clear-eyed, unafraid. "They think I'm fading," I said to the empty room, my voice steady now. "They're about to find out how sharp I can be." Saturday came with a sky so clear it almost looked new, as if the world had decided to give me one clean slate. I woke early, made coffee, and set the dining room table with the same china Megan had boxed up months ago. I wanted everything to look familiar, solid, mine. By 10 o'clock, the doorbell rang. My daughters arrived first, Nora and Danielle, each with her husband and kids. They looked worried, as if they'd been waiting years for this call. "Mom, what's going on?" Nora asked. "You'll see," I told her. "Just sit tight." A few minutes later, Lydia showed up, clutching her purse like a shield. She gave me a long, searching look but didn't say anything. Behind her came Patrick Ellis, wearing a dark suit and the calm confidence of someone who spent a lifetime in courtrooms. Beside him stood another man in a gray jacket, his notary. We were ready. The sound of laughter floated from the kitchen. Luke and Megan were still eating breakfast, unaware. When they walked in and saw everyone assembled in the living room, Megan's face froze. "What is this?" she asked, her tone already defensive. "It's a family meeting," I said. "Please sit down." They hesitated, but something in my voice, steady, quiet, left no room for argument. Luke guided her to the couch. The children ran off to the backyard. I waited until the house was still. "I've gathered you all here," I began, "because there's been confusion about who this house belongs to and what's been happening inside it." Megan folded her arms. "Grace, if this is about the pantry, it's about a lot more than a pantry." I cut in. Patrick opened his briefcase and laid a stack of documents on the table, copies of the deed, utility bills, and a small digital recorder. "Megan," I said, turning to her, "do you recognize this voice?" Patrick pressed play. Her voice filled the room, sharp, impatient, unmistakable. "She's impossible to live with," the recording said. "Once we get her to sign power of attorney, we can refinance the house. It's better for everyone." The silence that followed was suffocating. Luke's shoulders sagged. Megan's face went pale. "This isn't what it sounds like," she stammered. "We were just plotting?" I asked softly. "You can call it what you like. I call it betrayal." Patrick stepped forward. "Mrs. Hollander has full ownership of this property," he said firmly. "Any attempt to gain control without her consent would be considered fraud and coercion. We've documented everything." Luke rubbed his forehead. "Mom, we didn't mean—" I held up a hand. "Don't lie to me, Luke. You borrowed $85,000 to buy a house that never existed. That money became her car." He looked at the floor. "I'll pay it back," he whispered. "I know you will," I said, "because here's what's going to happen." I unfolded the letter I'd written and began to read. "This property remains solely in my name. You are welcome to live here under one condition: respect. If that condition is broken again by word, action, or lock, you'll leave within 30 days. You will also begin repaying the $85,000, starting now, in monthly installments of $1,000. Once the full amount is repaid, you may receive your share of the inheritance, not before. I looked straight at Megan. You may have married my son, but you do not own me, my house, or my silence. Her lips trembled, and for a moment I thought she'd scream, but she just nodded slowly, her jaw tightening. Fine, she said, if that's how you want it. Patrick placed an envelope in front of them. That's a notarized copy, he said, signed, sealed, and filed. The meeting ended in heavy quiet. Megan stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door so hard the chandelier rattled. Luke stayed behind, slumped in Harold's old chair. His eyes were red. I'm sorry, Mom, he said. I don't know what happened to me. I wanted to say something kind, something that would make it easier, but kindness was what had led us here. Instead, I just put a hand on his shoulder. You forgot who raised you, I said softly. Maybe this will remind you. He nodded, tears slipping down his face. Can we fix this? Not today, I said. Maybe someday. When they left the room, I finally exhaled. My daughters hugged me tight, their faces wet with tears. Mom, Danielle whispered. I can't believe you did all this. I didn't have a choice, I said. When someone locks you out of your own life, you either wait to die or you find the key. After everyone left, the house fell silent again, for the first time in years. It was a good silence. I made myself tea and sat in the garden. The wind moved through the trees like a sigh. Later, I heard the sound of packing, boxes, drawers closing. I didn't interfere. When Luke passed me in the hallway carrying a suitcase, he stopped. We'll go stay with her parents for a while, he said quietly. Give you space. That's probably best, I replied. He hesitated. I'll pay back every cent. I know, I said. Do it for yourself. When the door closed behind them, I stood alone in the living room. The gray sofa they'd bought looked smaller, somehow, insignificant. I sat on it for a moment, listening to the echo of the lock clicking shut, this time from the inside. I walked to Harold's photo on the mantel, the one where he was laughing under the cherry blossoms. I kept my promise. Harold, I whispered. I protected what we built. Outside, the sun was setting, the sky painted gold. I took the key from my pocket, the one I'd removed from the pantry lock weeks earlier, and placed it in the tin box with the documents, one lock broken, another secured. I brewed another cup of tea and sat down to watch the light fade. The air felt different, lighter, freer, filled with something that almost felt like peace, and for the first time in a long while, I knew I had my home back. 6 months later, the house felt different, softer, quieter but peaceful, not empty. The walls seemed to breathe again. I'd repainted the kitchen yellow, just like it used to be. The pantry door stood open now, the shelves neatly lined, no locks, no secrets. Every time I passed it, I smiled a little. I'd started teaching again, part-time at the community center. Nothing fancy, just reading lessons for seniors who'd never finished school. I liked the rhythm of their voices stumbling over new words. It reminded me that it's never too late to learn something new, even about yourself. Luke began sending checks every month. Sometimes a note came with them. I'm working on it. Mom. His handwriting looked smaller, humbler. Megan didn't write, and I didn't expect her to. They'd moved to another town, started over, I suppose. Maybe that's what they both needed. One Saturday, Luke called. "Can I come by?" he asked. When he arrived, we sat on the porch in the same chairs Harold built. He looked older, softer around the edges. For a while, we just watched the sparrows in silence. "I was wrong," he said finally. "You didn't deserve any of it." I nodded. "You're right. But knowing that you see it now, that's enough." When he left, I walked into the garden. The hydrangeas Harold planted were blooming again, their petals pale blue in the afternoon sun. I felt something shift inside me, a lightness I hadn't known in years. I turned back to the house, my house, and whispered, "True wealth isn't what you own, it's what you refuse to let them take. Your peace, your dignity." And this time, I believed it.